Something is wrong with today. I knew it before my eyes were even open. My phone alarm went off like normal, but the apartment felt heavier, like the air conditioner had given up at night, and the room was holding its breath. I lay there listening to the soft hum of the fridge and the low traffic outside my window and tried to name what felt off. Nothing came. It wasn't a big thing. It was 1,000 small things, the kind you only notice when you're alone with them. I got up, tugged on the same jeans from yesterday, swiped a palmful of cold water across my face, and stared at the man in the mirror who looked like he hadn't slept. I had that faint chemical taste in my mouth you get from sleeping with your mouth open. My jaw felt tight. It was a regular Tuesday, but my body didn't buy it. I worked a morning shift at a parts warehouse off Route 7, the kind of place that smells like cardboard dust and burned coffee and makes your knuckles black by lunch. I'm not special there. I'm the guy who unloads pallets, scans barcodes, and eats a peanut butter sandwich at 10:30 because I always forget breakfast. On the way out, I turned the deadbolt on the apartment like I always do, but I checked it twice without meaning to. In the parking lot, the same white work vans sat like teeth in a mouth, but some idiot had parked crooked, and the lines of the world didn't quite match up. Across the street, down by the strip of grass where people walk their dogs, there was a military van parked nose into the curb. Not a truck, not a Humvee. A plain, boxy van with government plates and two guys up front wearing sunglasses at 8 in the morning. Engine off. Windows up. No markings except a small stencil with numbers. That didn't mean anything to me. I stood next to my Civic picking dirt from the edge of my key and watched them watch nothing. When I pulled out, they didn't move. Traffic was light for a weekday. The usual morning talk radio host sounded too cheerful, like he knew he wasn't going to talk to us again for a while and wanted to go out on a high note. At the turn for the warehouse, there's a stoplight where the homeless guy with the hand-lettered sign usually stands. He wasn't there. Instead, a smear of dark brown-red streaked down the concrete by the median, like someone had dropped a paint can and dragged it. There wasn't a crash, no broken glass, no workers in safety vests, just that ugly stain in the wrong spot. It could have been anything. I told myself it was anything. The light turned green and a horn chirped behind me, and I moved. Inside, the warehouse felt hollow. Marty coughed into his sleeve, a wet, deep cough that sounded like a shovel hitting slush, and said he must be catching the thing going around. He laughed and made it into a joke about finally getting sick days, but his eyes were glassy, and he looked like someone had turned down his brightness. I started the forklift, and its beep-beep echoed around the aisles, and came back too fast. The scanner guns would not connect to the Wi-Fi. I power cycled mine twice, and watched the little spinning circle like it owed me money. The office TV, which is always tuned to cable news with the sound off and captions on, had a strip of red breaking news about a temporary communications disruption affecting certain networks. We've all seen those crawls our whole lives. They're the weather of the modern world. We watch them until they become wallpaper. This one didn't feel like wallpaper. The captions stuttered, flickering between two anchors with different headlines, like someone changing the channel without the remote quite catching. Localized outages became precautionary measures, became nothing to see here, and I felt the first pinch of fear land under my ribs. My phone buzzed. It was Jess. She's my situationship, though neither of us uses that word out loud because it makes us sound like we're trying to be cooler about it than we are. We met at a mutual friend's cookout in June, fell into each other in July, and spent August pretending we weren't in a thing by acting like we were. We trade memes about people who leave their carts in the lot and cheat at Wordle. She keeps a set of my old t-shirts in her trunk in case she ends up at my place and wants something soft to sleep in. We don't say boyfriend or girlfriend because those words demand calendars and big talk, and we've both got enough elastic in our lives as it is. She texted, "You seeing this phone stuff? Calls keep dropping. My group chat is frozen." I typed back, "Warehouse Wi-Fi is trash. Radio being weird. You okay?" The three dots pulsed, stopped, came back, stopped again. She sent, "Think I'm fine. My neighbor is coughing through the wall, like he's trying to move furniture with his lungs." I started to text something smart back, but I erased it and wrote, "Hydrate and stay off TikTok. You'll scare yourself." She sent a thumbs up and a red heart, and then nothing more. By 9:40, my scanner wouldn't link to the inventory system at all, which meant I was lifting pallets of brake pads from point A to point B and trusting my memory to figure out where B was supposed to be. Marty coughed again and spit into the trash can and said, "Blood," like it was a brand name for chewing tobacco. I told him to go home, and he said, "We're short already. Jimmy's late." And then he bent over and braced himself on his knees like a little kid after sprint. The warehouse manager, Trina, stuck her head out from the office and yelled something about the server. Then her phone rang, and I watched her face change in slow motion while she listened. She didn't blink for a long time. When she hung up, she said, "Guys, if you need to make a call, do it now. Landlines only." None of us had a landline. A few of the older guys smirked, and someone said, "Like we're going to fax our moms." And we all laughed because laughing is the cheapest way to feel like you're doing something. At 10, I checked my phone again. 2 texts in the group chat from my high school buddy Nate, who still lives 10 minutes away and still thinks I can fix his life with jumper cables and a beer. Anyone else hearing sirens nonstop? And then forget it, call me later. I tried to call. The call connected and died in one long, gray note. I tried again. Same thing. I switched to speaker as if that mattered. Nothing. Around 10:30, when I was cutting the shrink wrap off a skid, I heard something out by the loading dock. Not the usual rumble of trucks. A small sound, like sneakers scuffing concrete, followed by another wet cough. I pushed the door open. Sunlight hit me in the eyes. The alley behind the warehouse is a place for cigarette breaks and excuses to get fresh air. Today, the recycling bin had been tipped over. Cardboard lay scattered, and there was a streak of that same ugly brown red on the concrete leading past the dumpster toward the corner. Blood doesn't look like movie blood when it's out in the air. It dries weird, and it smells like a penny you can't spit out. I told myself a raccoon got into some old meat. I told myself a dozen stupid things, while my body told me one. Shut the door. So I did. By 11, the office TV had a different crawl with a different tone. Shelter in place while authorities conduct routine tests in certain areas. That's what the letter said. The anchor's mouth was out of sync and kept moving after the caption stopped. Someone posted a video in our town subreddit showing a street to neighborhoods over where men in white suits walked down the sidewalk, carrying cases like trombone boxes, and I watched the first few seconds before the video froze and turned into a spinning circle. More coughing, more throat clearing, the sound of someone vomiting out by the break room sink, and no one going to check, because if you go, you own it. The radio switched to emergency alert tones twice, and then the DJ came back with a story about pumpkin spice shortages, like he had to pay a bet. I told Trina I had to go. I didn't make a speech. I didn't say I was scared or that my body believed something my brain didn't. I said I had to check on something at home. She looked at me like I had said I had to check on a dog I didn't own, and then she nodded like she was nodding at a different person standing behind me, a person she did know. "Clock out," she said. "Text me later if you can." We both knew I wouldn't. Outside, the sky looked normal. Blue, a few streaks of cloud like chalk. The military van was gone. On the way home, I passed the big grocery store and saw people standing around in the parking lot holding their phones up like they were trying to get a picture of the sun. A kid in a red hoodie was crying, not throwing a tantrum, but the quiet cry that shakes your shoulders. His dad put a hand on his head and looked around like the bad thing was visible if he just found the right angle. My apartment is in a building that used to be a motel before they turned it into what the landlord calls affordable urban living, which is a nice way to say small. My neighbors are a revolving set of people who work nights and keep to themselves. I unlocked my door and relocked it and stood in my kitchen listening to the pipes like there was a message in them. I opened the cabinet where I keep the good stuff and counted what I had without planning to. 3 cans of chicken noodle, 2 of chili, a jar of peanut butter, a sleeve of saltines, the pasta I always buy and never cook because I'm too lazy to boil water after work, 4 bottles of water because I'm the guy who says he'll drink more water and then forgets. I laughed a little at the absurdity of counting, and then I kept counting. Jess texted, "Can I come over?" It wasn't a flirty text. The words marched across the screen in a straight line. I stared at them so long the brightness on my phone dimmed, I wanted to say yes fast. I wanted to say of course. But the sentence that's been stuck in my head all morning pushed everything else out. Warning. Trust no one. Some are already infected. I don't know where I first saw it. Maybe a screenshot in a group. Maybe some stupid meme I dismissed and saved anyway because the font was too serious for a joke. It was in my head now, and I hated it because it put a divider between me and everyone I love. I typed yeah, but hurry, and then I deleted it. I typed yes. Be careful. Don't talk to anyone. Delete. I typed, give me 10 minutes. I have to take care of something here. And hit send, and immediately felt like I'd kicked a dog. In those 10 minutes, I made decisions that make sense now in a way they didn't then. I dragged my coffee table in front of the door and wedged the legs under the knob, like my dad showed me when I first moved out, and he gave me the same lecture all dads give. Locks are for honest people. Make it a little hard for the rest. I pushed my dresser against the bedroom window, even though I live on the second floor, and the only person who could climb in that window is either half spider or powered by a kind of need I don't want to meet. I grabbed the roll of duct tape from the junk drawer and taped the edges of the bathroom vent because I once watched a video where a guy said gas leaks travel in weird ways. I filled the tub and the sink. Halfway through filling the tub, I realized I was doing the hurricane prep thing even though there was no hurricane. Fine. Water's never a bad idea. The neighbor on my right, the one who plays video games with a headset so loud you can hear his friends calling to him through the wall, started coughing and then stopped, abruptly, like someone turned him off. I froze and held my breath without meaning to. There was a scratching sound, slow and deliberate, not like a cat, more like a fork dragged across a tablecloth. Then a voice, not words, a soft, rhythmic hum, almost a tune, and I found my hands already on the drawer with the kitchen knives before my brain admitted we were scared. My phone buzzed again. Jess, I'm downstairs. I looked through the peephole and saw her on the landing, eyes wide, hoodie up, holding a tote bag like it was a life preserver. Her hair was tucked into the hood, and I noticed the tiny chip nail polish on her thumb, because that's how the brain protects itself, zooming in on something dumb when the big thing is too big. I pulled the table aside and opened the door, and she slid in fast like it was raining outside even though it wasn't. I tried to call you, she said breathless. It wouldn't go through. People are just standing in the hallway, like they forgot where their doors are. Put the chain, I said, and she did, and we both stood there looking at the door like it was a person we were waiting to finish a sentence. She hugged me. Not a showy hug. The kind where your hands slide into the same places they always do, because they've been there before and remember. She was warm. She smelled like the cinnamon gum she chews to keep from stress snacking. What is this? She asked. I could have lied. I could have said outage, glitch, rumor. I heard myself say, something is spreading, and I felt the words land between us like a third person in the room. It's not on one channel. It's everywhere. I think it's in our building. She stepped back and looked at me the way she does when she's trying to decide if I'm making a joke she doesn't get. Like sick. Like sick, I said, and then, because I needed her to understand what my stomach already did. And like not sick, different. She swallowed. Okay, what do we do? We did the things you do when you don't know what to do. We closed the blinds and pushed the couch into a better angle in front of the door and found flashlights that didn't have dead batteries. She cleared the kitchen counter of mail and bottle caps while I pulled the storage bin from under the bed where I keep camping junk I never use. And when I popped the lid and saw the little propane stove, I felt an electric relief as stupid and pure as finding a $20 bill in an old coat. We made a small pile of what we had and what we wished we had. We drank water we didn't want because the internet once told us you think better hydrated. We didn't turn on the TV because silence felt safer than faces lying to us. We talked through what we would do if we had to leave, and I realized I didn't want to leave at all. Around noon, the building changed. It's hard to explain if you don't live in a place where you can hear your neighbors breathe. The normal noises faded. No more microwave beeps. No clink of someone's spoon in a mug. No heavy footsteps above. In their place were new sounds that didn't belong. A thump that repeated every 8 seconds like a metronome. A soft, syrupy murmur that rose and fell from someplace down the hall. The hiss of water running, and then stopping, and then running again. A laugh that wasn't a laugh. We stood in the kitchen holding still, two animals listening for the snap of a twig, and I thought about the sign I'd seen once on a chain-link fence around a water treatment plant. Do not enter. Water may be deeper than it appears. I wanted a sign like that for life. A text appeared from an unknown number. Shelter in place. Await instructions. Do not answer the door for anyone but authorized personnel. It linked to a site that wouldn't load. The number didn't trace back to a contact in my phone. I stared at it and thought about Jess on the landing 2 minutes earlier, about the look in her eyes when she said my name, about the way the chain had clicked into place. I thought about Marty's cough, the brown-red streak by the dumpster, the military van with the engine off. The sentence returned, not as a joke, warning. Trust no one. Some are already infected. I wanted to reject it. I wanted to throw it out the window like a smell. But it didn't care what I wanted. A knock came from the hallway. Not at our door. 2 doors down. A man's voice said, "Help me." The way a person says it when they're already embarrassed for needing help. Then a woman's voice, or the same voice changed, said, "Please." And the word stretched in a way that made the hair on my arms lift. Jess's eyes found mine. The fork on fabric scratching started again next door, and the hum picked up like someone clapping on the wrong beat. "Don't," Jess whispered, because she knew me. Because she knew the version of me who keeps jumper cables in his trunk and says yes before he asks for details. "I won't." I lied, and I didn't move. And I kept not moving while every muscle in my legs argued with me about who was in charge. We didn't open the door. We made the decision and owned it. I texted Nate and got nothing back. I texted my mom, and the messages stacked up unsent like airplanes circling a runway. I turned off my phone to save battery and turned it on again because being unreachable felt like drowning. We ate saltines and split a can of soup cold because lighting the stove felt like telling the world where we were. Jess found one of my old t-shirts and pulled it on, and the normalcy of that dumb act hit me so hard I had to sit down. She came and sat with me, and we listened to our building breathe. When the first scream came, it came from outside, not a movie scream. Short, angry, a hey. That turned into something else by the end. Then running feet, shoes slapping asphalt. A second scream closer. Then the wet sound again, heavier now, like someone squeezing a soaked towel with both hands. Jess reached for my hand, and I let her have it, and I didn't let go. I don't know how much time passed because clocks became insulting. The sun moved across the slat shadows on my floor. That's all. I checked the peephole once and saw the hallway empty except for a smear of blood on the doorknob of 2C and a single sneaker lying on its side, like it had been set there on purpose. My neighbor on the right started humming again, the same tune, and this time the words tried to form. I pressed my ear to the wall and heard them fail, like a mouth practicing a new shape. I backed away and washed my hands even though they weren't dirty, and Jess followed me and did the same, and we both laughed at ourselves and didn't. By late afternoon, if that's when it was, the building shook. Not an earthquake. A door somewhere kicked open. Heavy boots. Voices that weren't ours. Someone shouted authorized entry and pounded on a door 6 knocks in a row, and something inside my chest made a tight fist. Jess looked at me, and I knew we were at the point where decisions mean what they say. I looked at the couch, at the chain, at the dresser wedged against the bedroom window, at the water sitting calmly in the tub, and I thought of the 2 guys in the military van with their sunglasses on and their engine off, while the world rearranged itself around them. We stood there in our little kitchen in our little life, and we chose. We chose to trust what our bodies had told us all day. We chose not to open the door. We chose to be the people who might be called paranoid later, if later ever came. We chose to lock down, not because we were brave, but because it was the only thing that made sense when nothing did. I sent one last text to Jess's phone and mine, the same words to the same 2 people who would read them. If either of us gets weird, we say it out loud. If either of us gets sick, we don't pretend we're not. We don't lie to each other. Promise. She read it. She nodded. Promise, she said. and the word meant something in that moment. It weighed more than it usually does. The pounding moved closer. A voice yelled, "Authorized personnel," and then, "Open up!" And then softer, almost reasonable, "We're here to help." The chain on my door looked very small. I put my shoulder into the couch and felt the fabric bite into my skin. Jess slid the deadbolt tight. We stood there with our hearts in our throats and our hands ready, and the simple, strong truth of the day stood beside us like a third person no one could see. Something is off, and it's already here. The pounding on the doors didn't stop, it just moved. It slid down the hallway like someone dragging a sledgehammer on wheels, slow, heavy, deliberate. The voice calling, "Authorized personnel," got quieter until we couldn't tell if it was going further away or closer to the stairwell. Then silence. Silence, until a phone somewhere rang. An actual landline ring. It sounded wrong in 2025, like hearing a typewriter in an office. Jess's eyes darted toward my kitchen counter, where my cell sat black and useless. We didn't move. The ringing cut off mid-ring. That's when the first body hit our door. It wasn't a knock. It was a full slam, shoulder first. The chain yanked tight with a metallic snap that sent a shock through my teeth. Jess jumped behind me, and we both pushed the couch harder into place, shoving until my palms burned. Another slam. The door frame creaked like old bones. Then nothing. We waited with our breathing loud and ugly in the quiet. I mouthed, "Don't talk," and Jess nodded, eyes wide and wet but locked on me. A whisper came from the hall. Not at the door, too far away to be right outside, but close enough that it threaded under the threshold. "We know you're safe in there." Male voice, low and patient. "Let's keep it that way." Jess's nails dug into my forearm. I shook my head. "Don't answer." Then, "It's just protocols. Testing. You'll be fine if you comply." The voice sounded like every IT guy I've ever met. Calm, helpful, boring. That scared me more than shouting would have. A scrape. Something sliding on the carpet closer. And then a new sound, wet clicking, like someone chewing with their mouth open but slower. Jess clamped both hands over her mouth, shoulders trembling. I reached for the kitchen knife I'd laid on the counter. It felt like a toy. Something sniffed at the bottom of the door. I swear to God. A wet inhale followed by a sound I can't compare to anything human. A half-swallowed groan with no air in it. My skin went cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. Then retreating footsteps. Slow. A door somewhere slammed shut. We stayed frozen for maybe 5 whole minutes. Could have been 30 seconds. Could have been an hour. Time isn't real in fear. Finally, Jess whispered, so low I almost didn't hear, "We have to leave." I shook my head. "Not yet. They know we're here. They know everywhere." And then, as if the universe heard her, my phone lit up. New alert. Black background. White block letters. Emergency update. Evacuate TO approved shelter sites immediately. Trust no one unverified. That last part punched me in the throat. It was the same phrase that had been gnawing at me since morning, but official now. Under the words was a map with a red dot pulsing just 2 blocks away, labeled Safe Zone Check-In. Jess grabbed her tote, already slinging it over her shoulder. "We can't stay here. They'll breach doors eventually." "Or it's a trap," I said. "It's official," she snapped, louder than she meant. "Official doesn't mean safe," I said, trying to keep my voice level while my heart jackhammered. "How do we know what's infected and what's not?" She stopped, stared at me with this mix of terror and pleading that said she'd follow me if I said stay, but she'd hate me for it if we died. Another sound broke the standoff. From the other side of our shared wall, the gamer neighbor started speaking again. Not humming now. Talking. One word, over and over, between wet breaths. "Open." Soft, insistent, like he was testing the taste of it. We grabbed what we could. Backpack with canned food, water bottles, duct tape, flashlight, my dad's old baseball bat from the closet, because it felt better than nothing. Jess took the knife. At the door I paused, hand on the chain. One more slam from that hallway, and we'd be done. But nothing came. Just that soft whispering, open, bleeding through drywall. "Stay behind me," I whispered. She nodded. We slipped out. The hallway was wrong. Light flickering, walls scratched, fresh gouges low, like from nails or maybe keys. Doors ajar, shoes abandoned, a jacket half wedged in a door like someone got yanked back inside mid-escape. 2C, the sneaker door, was cracked open now. Dark inside. My instincts screamed to move. We moved. Stairs were silent except for our breath. We passed a man on the first landing standing perfectly, still facing the corner, like a kid in timeout. His shoulders rose and fell with tiny jerks. We pressed against the rail to edge past, and he didn't turn. Jess's tote brushed the wall, and he let out a sigh so long, and what it sounded wrong in every way. We bolted the last flight. Outside air hit us like freedom and poison all at once. The parking lot was scattered with abandoned cars, some with doors wide open, radios still murmuring static, sirens somewhere distant, smoke from the highway maybe, and people, groups of them, moving in strange ways, too slow, too synced, like they were marching to a beat we couldn't hear. Some wore masks, some didn't. Some just stared up at the sky, like they were waiting for instructions. Jess gripped my arm. "Safe zone's that way," she whispered, pointing toward the red dot on her phone. I scanned the street. 2 soldiers, or guys in soldier gear, stood near an armored truck about a block away. They were talking to a small knot of civilians. Calm, hand gestures. But one of the civilians turned suddenly and just ran. One of the soldiers raised his rifle and cracked, one shot. The runner dropped without a scream, just down. The rest of the group didn't react like normal humans would. They just turned their heads in perfect unison to look at the body, then back to the soldiers. Jess made a sound, half gasp, half sob. I pulled her back behind a parked SUV before the soldiers could notice. "We're not going there," I said. "That's the safe zone," she hissed. "That's an execution." She shut up fast, eyes huge. I peeked again. The soldiers weren't checking the body, just stepped over it and waved the group forward. New plan, my Civic. It was parked at the end of the lot, between us and it. 2 figures slowly walking our way, heads tilted in the same unnatural angle. "Keys ready," I whispered. She nodded, knife in white-knuckled grip. We moved low and fast. The first figure, a woman in pajamas, no shoes, mouth slack, turned toward us just as we passed. Her eyes. I've never seen pupils blown that wide. She opened her mouth like to speak, but only a hiss came out. Jess didn't wait. She shoved her hard enough that the woman fell sideways into a bush. No fight, just limp and gone. We hit the car. I unlocked, we dove in. I turned the key. Nothing. Dead battery. I'd left the dome light on while I loaded stuff that morning. I wanted to slam my head against the wheel. Instead, I slammed the gear into neutral and said, "Push." Jess looked at me like I was insane, then climbed out and started shoving. I jumped too, shoulder to trunk, rolling it back down the slight slope of the lot. The 2 figures turned and started following, not fast, but steady, like they had nowhere else to be. We jumped back in. I popped the clutch, engine coughed, roar caught. Relief so fierce I almost cried. "Go," Jess screamed, and I did, fishtailing out of the lot, tires squealing, the 2 figures shrinking in the rearview. We didn't talk for 3 blocks. Just breathing, scanning, turning corners. Roads half empty but wrong. Car stopped mid-lane. Doors open, hazard lights blinking. Finally, Jess said, "Where?" "Not the safe zone," I said. "Then where?" "My cousin's shop. Body repair place. Metal doors, heavy tools, clothes." She nodded, swallowing hard. We cut through back streets, passing more clusters of people. Some normal scared, some too still, too quiet. At one stop sign, a woman waved at us, desperate. Jess reached for the handle. "Don't," I barked, louder than I meant. "She's alive. She's something." Jess yanked her hand back like I burned her. She hated me for that moment. I hated me too. The shop was a squat metal building behind a shuttered diner. My cousin keeps a spare key in a magnetic box under the AC unit. He's done it since high school. I prayed he hadn't changed the habit. He hadn't. We rolled in, killed the engine, slammed the bay door shut behind us. Darkness swallowed us until I found the breaker and flipped a few lights. Safe. For the moment. We barricaded again, tool chests, spare tires, a welding table across the big door. I found a work radio and tried to hail something, anything. Static. Jess sank onto a stool, shaking. We can't stay forever. I know. We need people. We need to know who's still. Alive doesn't mean safe, I said, softer than before. You saw that. She nodded, tears cutting tracks down her cheeks. We sat there as night started to gather beyond the high garage windows, listening to the world outside rewire itself. Every now and then we heard engines, shouts, a pop that could be a gun or something worse. I looked at Jess, at the way she hugged herself, at the blood smear on her sleeve from pushing the woman in the lot, and I realized this was the first day of something. Not a glitch, not a storm, something deeper. I thought about the text. Trust no one, some are already infected. And I knew, finally, that this wasn't paranoia. It was protocol. We locked eyes, both thinking it but neither saying. We might have to decide, someday soon, if the other is still human. The night pressed against the metal walls. The world outside wasn't ours anymore. And inside the shop, I kept one hand on the bat and one hand near Jess, because trust is dangerous now, but losing her would be worse. Night was alive outside the shop, not with crickets, not with cars, with something heavier, breathing across the city in uneven gusts. Every once in a while the sound of tires on asphalt would rush by, followed by silence sharp enough to cut your skin. We stayed in the pool of yellow light from the hanging bulbs, trying not to think about what the dark was hiding. Jess sat on the welding table, hoodie up, knife still in her lap. She hadn't let go of it since we got here. I paced, counting, checking locks, running my hands across metal edges like I could feel weak spots. At some point she said, "You're wearing a hole in the floor." I stopped. "You're shaking holes into your hands." We both laughed once, the brittle kind that feels borrowed, and then went back to silence. I tried the radio again. More static. I flipped through frequencies until a voice cut through, low and broken. "Stay away, safe zones compromised, not all human." Then static swallowed it whole. Jess looked up, eyes red but sharp. "Compromised," she whispered. "Sounds that way." She nodded slowly, like something ugly had just clicked into place. We ate dry pasta out of the box like snacks, because we didn't want to risk fire or smell. I showed her how to twist rags and dip them in motor oil to make makeshift torches if we needed light. She showed me the little first aid kit she'd yanked from her tote. We were two regular people pretending to be survivors, because pretending was all we had left. Sometime after midnight, the banging started again, not on our shop, but somewhere close, maybe the diner next door. Doors being tested, metal squealing. We froze. Then a voice. A man's shouting, "Please, open up. They're coming." Jess's eyes begged me. "We can't just." "Jess." My voice cracked, but I kept it low. "We don't know." He banged again. "They killed my wife. Please." I took one step toward the door anyway, because I'm me, and that's what I do. Jess was there fast, fingers gripping my sleeve. "Stop. We can't. Trust N01, she hissed. "You said it yourself. We don't know what they even means right now." The banging turned into sobbing, then silence, then a sound like bone popping, then nothing. We stayed frozen long after quiet returned. When I finally moved, it was to slide another tool chest against the bay door. Neither of us said a word. By dawn, gray light seeped through the high windows. The street outside looked emptied but wrong, too neat, no bodies, no cars where there should be cars. Like someone reset the map, but forgot the details. Jess looked exhausted. I felt worse than exhausted. I felt hollowed out. "We can't stay," she whispered. "I know." "Where?" I looked at the door, at the tools, at her, at the faint smear of blood dried onto her hoodie cuff from yesterday. North, I said finally. Back roads. My uncle's cabin, if it's still there. Woods. Fewer people. Fewer infected, she said, and didn't flinch at the word. We packed in silence. Cans, water, the bat, her knife. Gas cans from the corner. We rolled the bay door up just enough to slip out, then closed it behind us without looking back. The world outside was changed. Mailboxes hung open. Windows smashed. A single dog trotted down the center of the road, tail low, eyes wild. It didn't even look at us. We found an old pickup in the diner's back lot, key still in the ignition. Lucky or bait, we find out. Engine coughed but turned. We looked at each other one last time. Silent agreement passing between us. Keep moving. Keep breathing. Keep each other human as long as we can. And then we drove, slow and watchful, past empty houses and quiet yards, past bodies that weren't bodies anymore, out toward the thin blue edge of morning. The city shrank in the mirrors. The unknown stretched ahead. Whatever this infection is, virus, parasite, something we don't have words for, it's already here. It hides behind friendly faces, familiar voices, uniforms, promises of safety. It waits for trust. I'm not telling you this because I'm special. I'm telling you because I was ordinary, warehouse guy, bad at breakfast, maybe in love with a girl who chews cinnamon gum. And in one day, the world flipped. Now we know the only rule that matters. Trust no one. Some are already infected. If you're still watching, remember, this isn't just a story. It's a warning. In a world that can turn overnight, sometimes survival isn't about fighting monsters. It's about deciding who to let in and who to keep out. If this left you uneasy, that's good. It should. Stay sharp. Stay ready. And if someone's knocking tonight, maybe don't open the door. Subscribe for more true nightmare fuel.